Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to primarily talk about perennial vegetables and fruits. So as we through the market stuff, and last week we talked about best skills for preparation. Anybody come up with any new ideas along that arena? I think Mike's all set with one of the better ones.
Bridge builder?
Yeah. Yeah, we need a new bridge builder.
Yeah.
Here that's going to be popular.
Yeah.
So, preparedness news, the markets were broadly down today. Gold was up a little bit at 2178. It seems to be performing one of the better assets right now. Silver was down a nickel, 2441. I think the gold silver ratio is actually 1:89 today. And tilt and zeros were up a little today. Wheat was down about 10 cents, 5.26. Seems to be going nowhere fast. The military industrial complex was mostly up except for Boeing. They're having a hard time getting their act together. So although they were up considerably yesterday when the CEO and chairman of the board announced that they were resigning. That's probably a good thing. Natural gas was down again today. The futures is at 178. Cost of production is about 230, so this can't go on forever. Bitcoin was actually down a little bit today, but it was kind of floating around 70,000 after, which is where it was last week on Tuesday. But just in the meantime, it went way down and then shot back up yesterday considerably. And it seems to be holding on that gain from yesterday. So Texas National Guard was overrun at the border, primarily due to their marching orders. I don't think they let them have ammunition or let them defend themselves, really. Still got a war on natural gas, war on cash, war on food in the Netherlands, Germany, France, Italy, India, a few other places around the world. And war on gardens has come to America in the Gestapo of Oregon. They're trying to make it illegal to do about anything in the garden or food production. I don't think that's constitutional, but we'll see. Middle East, we looks like still plan on building a port in Gaza.
Just not to go down a rabbit hole, just quickly, what's Oregon doing in regards to gardens?
They basically the governor, I think it's the governor has or the Department of Ag or whatever it is has issued all these edicts that if you have anything, like if you have a graveled path going out to your chicken coop, they consider that a CAFO. Or if you have gravel in the bottom of your chicken coop, you know.
A
So
CAFO?
yeah, confinement. What does that stand for? CAFO, confinement. I don't know what it stands. Confined agriculture.
Concentrated animal feeding operation?
Yeah. And so it's kind of crazy in Oregon right now. So if people actually
So you can have porn shops and pot shops in a neighborhood next to a school that you can't have chickens with gravel in them.
Wow.
Is that it?
That's about the size of it in Oregon.
Oh my word. Our daughter lived out there for 5 years. I was shocked at what we saw in what would have been lovely neighborhoods. Just appalled. Appalled. Okay, I said my piece.
Anyway, crazy days out there. And we did have a major bridge collapse in Baltimore, and thought I would play a little of that just for fun. Not to go down too long a rabbit hole, but it's just a few minutes.
Yeah, good morning, Glenn. Great to be with you as always. Yeah, America's waking up to a real tragedy this morning. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore Harbor, it's a massive span. And for those of us who live in the Northeast, Glenn, I can tell you I have crossed that bridge many a time, going from New York to Washington and back, right? It is a major, major artery in the Northeast. And at about 1:30 a.m. Eastern time this morning, a cargo ship was approaching the bridge. And the video that I posted, which is now everywhere on social media, shows
we're watching it right now.
Yes, and it's all over TV as well. It is a massive cargo ship, and it's under a Singapore flag. So the ship itself is registered in Singapore, and you can see in the video that it approaches the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it loses power, Glenn, twice. Not once, but twice in the moments leading up to its approach to the bridge.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, yeah, you can see in the video, it loses power twice. It regains power, but by that moment, Glenn, it's too late, and they can't steer away from one of the massive pilings supporting the bridge, and the cargo ship goes right into the piling, and the entire bridge collapses like a house of cards, just folds in on itself right into Baltimore Harbor.
You know, I noticed, because I watched this video a couple of times after you posted it, and I mean, I couldn't believe it was like toothpicks falling apart. When you first start watching it, you'll see the traffic is pretty steady on the bridge. And thank God, right at the time that it collapses, not a lot of cars, if any, were on the bridge. Do we know if there were cars on the bridge?
Well, thankfully, I mean, if there's any silver lining in this horror show, Glenn, it is 1:30 in the morning, so there was relatively light traffic, and you can see headlights of cars going both ways. And, you know, the moment that the cargo ship hits the bridge, it looks like very few cars, if any, are on the bridge. What we're hearing this morning, pardon me, what we're hearing is that 2 people have already been rescued. God bless. There are at least 7 people missing that we know about. So there is a very active search and rescue going on. The Coast Guard is out there. The National Transportation Safety Board is on site. The Navy is there. Navy divers are in the water and have been now for hours. So we hope and pray that any victims who fell into the water in their automobiles, in their trucks, there's at least one semi that we know of that collapsed into the water with the bridge, Glenn. So we hope and pray that all of these people who were a part of this unfortunate accident, and at least now it does look like an accident, and we'll wait for the investigation. But
anyway, they go on and discuss a little bit whether it was or wasn't an accident, but anyway, not going to really go into that part of it, but the kind of the thing that hit home with me was that, you know, this will be a major impediment to imports into the East Coast, because Baltimore Harbor's a big one. Apparently, that's the place that import the most automobiles in the whole country. But anyway,
I hear it's also, I guess, maybe critical infrastructure in that it's a designated route for like hazardous materials, like fuel.
yeah,
So, I mean, they'll have to route around it, but
yeah,
it could be more impactful than it might seem.
yeah. I mean, that thing is always busy already, and you know, you take that away, and you know, going up
Mhm.
95 would this be, you know, a crawling affair? I got a feeling
Mhm.
for a lot of times of the day. So anyway, just shows how vulnerable we are to you know, whether it was accident and incompetence or sabotage. But apparently the ship had a lot of problems. They had crashed on the way out of the Netherlands and out of Antwerp, I guess, a couple of years ago. And when they went down to Chile, the authorities there said that the vessel was not seaworthy. Anyway, okay. So we got that. I just wanted to bring up the 12 volt Li-ion batteries. Apparently, we got a major fire hazard in our homes if we were to have an EMP or a CME. Uh, Apparently, with the kind of voltage that goes through those, and that one of those events, you know, all of our tool batteries would go up in smoke and flame. So I don't know what you do about that, but something to
Yeah,
think
I
of.
was just thinking, I wonder if something the equivalent of a Faraday cage would prevent that.
Well, maybe a metal, store them all in a
Yeah,
metal locker or
right.
something like that. I don't know whether they give off toxic gas or anything when they burn.
Yeah, they do when they burn. Uh, they they definitely do, and they're always in plastic cases anyway. So
Yeah, which is probably toxic when it
yeah,
burns.
exactly. Right,
So anyway, uh, kind of got them scattered all over the house here today.
right.
Between chainsaw battery and pole saw battery, and so
Drill batteries, light batteries that
yeah,
go with the drills.
yeah. So we need some kind of repository outside that has electricity to it to charge them.
Mhm. Well, at the very least, I guess at least store the charged ones, and have to look in to see if a metal case would stop that.
Yeah. Report back if you come up with something good.
Will do.
Uh, so okay, seasonal information. Got got some trees that came in that need planting now. I was hoping to get that done before the rain, but looks like that's not gonna happen. Good time to prune trees and vines still. It's getting late, but I pruned some that were peach tree that was in full bloom the other day. Or start a garden. Still time to start seeds and potato slips. Big butchering weather's probably over. Need to check the bees, order seeds if you haven't. Order your potassium iodine if you haven't. Keep harping on that. So, any progress anybody like to report today?
You can thank me for the rain. I sprayed my trees. So the forecast said it wasn't going to rain until 6 a.m. tomorrow. So I sprayed them early and it rained.
I noticed some of the cherry trees I was pruning had the little hairy things on them.
What's that an indicator of?
It's little spike like 1/16 of an inch. Looks like black hair, but it's
A fungus or something?
no, it's one of the things you're spraying for with the dormant oil.
Oh, okay.
Can't come up with the name of it right now.
Yeah, I actually sprayed today with, I think it's Captain or something, one of the fungal.
Uh-huh.
So I'll probably have to do it again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, and I talked a little bit last week about primers and about that kind of being an ideal alpha strategy item because they're small and light and don't take up much space for and they're pretty expensive nowadays. But you don't want to store and barter ammunition, primers might be an ideal thing. Has the same amount of value, but not readily usable without some work on the receiver's part. And today, I said with a little help from our friends, we got this massive cherry tree down. It was, a forked tree.
That is massive.
Yeah, each one of those cuts were wider than the 20-inch bars that we had.
Man, what are your plans for it?
Well, I guess it's just going to be firewood. It's a shame, but
Yeah.
anybody that wants some cherry, Herbert Reynolds came over and helped me with this, and he was suspecting it was going to be rotten inside, but I didn't see any. At least the little bit that we got cut up today, I didn't see any rot.
Yeah. Now, these things produce actual edible cherries, don't they?
No, well, it's debatable. I mean, it's a little black cherry that's quarter inch diameter maybe,
Okay.
and most of that seed.
Gotcha.
I mean,
And they were so far up in the air, there is absolutely no way to gather cherries.
Yeah.
Because how long were the logs that you cut down, dear?
I suspect some of them went 80 foot.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's a lot of nice wood. It'll be good firewood.
Yeah.
So.
But I tried to interest a local guy with a sawmill, and he said he didn't need any cherry. So I don't know.
Wow.
Usually, apparently, the cherry here is not that good, but I
Really?
think this would, other than the fact it's got a lot of limbs and nuts in it. I mean, that especially that one that's going away from us, it's pretty good for, I don't know, 15, 20 foot up there.
Yeah, it looks like a nice chunk of wood.
Makes me want to have a sawmill, but
Yeah, same.
I
I would like one.
I don't really have anything that I could use 1,000 board foot of cherry either. I don't think.
Yeah.
Cherry cabin.
Yeah. I don't have the time to actually run one, but
Yeah.
it doesn't stop me from wishing I had one.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we were doing today. Worse out. So Gonna play a little video.
Be doing for a few months on the cleanup end of it.
Yeah. Talk about perennials and got a gal from the Netherlands for your information, so you'll recognize what's going on. Okay, here we go.
Good morning from the garden. It's the 19th of April, and that means that we're in the middle of what in our climate is called the Hungry Gap. It's the time of year in spring, mainly April and May, when the winter vegetables are mostly finished, but before we're able to start harvesting the things that we have sown this year. Many people are trying to become self-sufficient now, and this time of year is the trickiest when you rely on homegrown produce. So in today's video, I want to show you no less than 10 perennial vegetables that we grow so that we can harvest them in this time of the year to bridge the hungry gap. You can't expect to have a perennial version of every annual vegetable that you grow. Perennial vegetables can be quite different from what we're used to, as often having stronger taste, but they're also more robust and often easier to grow. There is a surprising variety, and among the 10 vegetables that I'm going to show you, some you might know, but many you have probably not considered yet. So let's get started with the one that we have in the kitchen garden, with perennial broccoli. So this plant is called 9-star perennial broccoli, and actually it's grown in much the same way as purple sprouting broccoli. You sow it in spring, plant it out, and then you can start harvesting the florets after it has overwintered. But the difference is that this plant, as long as you harvest all the florets and don't allow it to go to seed, will perennialize, which means you can keep it for several years. So this plant has been sown 2 years ago. This actually is one plant, so you need to realize it takes up quite a bit of space. It will need at least 1 square meter. But I'm very happy with the harvest. It's actually, the florets are larger than last year. If you grow purple sprouting broccoli, then you will definitely be able to grow this one. But the taste is a little different. I think it's closer to cauliflower in taste than actual broccoli. The second perennial plant I want to show you is one that you probably do know, and I hope you grow it because it's definitely one of our favorite. It's asparagus. Unlike the perennial broccoli, which is perennial but quite short-lived, asparagus can give you harvest for 10 years, 20 years if you take care of the plants. We grow a variety called Geinlim. We're very happy with it. It's an all-male hybrid and one of it's a Dutch variety. Lim stands for Limburg, which is the main province, asparagus growing province in the Netherlands. We planted them, I think, 4 years ago. So now we are able to harvest until the longest day. And as you can see, harvest is overdue. Some of the spears are quite large, but they will be tasty nevertheless. And asparagus actually is one of the plants that I consider really worth growing yourself, because it tastes so much better when it's fresh than when you buy it and it's already been lying around in the shop for several days. Number 3, lovage, right behind me, which I grow as a part of the fruit tree guild of this cherry tree. And the function that it fulfills here in the guild is it attracts beneficial insects. But it's also a culinary herb or a perennial vegetable. And Stephen Barstow in his book Around the World in 80 Plants calls it spring celery. You can use it in much the same way as a base for soups and stews, and I do that often in spring. The stalks are nice and succulent in spring. The taste is quite a bit stronger than celery, but you can also force and blanch the plants, and then the taste becomes milder. Super useful plant for the edible forest garden. Another of my fruit tree guilds and another super useful perennial vegetable is this Welsh onion, which forms large clumps. It's also it's easily grown from seed, and again it's super useful at this time of year when you can use it as spring onion. This plant is about 4 years old, and I'm planning to harvest some seeds this year and try to propagate it. You could also divide the clumps. Number 5 is this perennial kale. In Dutch it's called eeuwige moeskool, or what is it? Everlasting kale. It is also, the plants become quite large. The reason it is perennial is that it does not flower and form seed. You can only propagate it by taking shoots in spring, but this is done very easily, and I'm planning on propagating a few for friends because there's always great demand. Quite surprisingly, I said at the beginning that the taste of perennial vegetables is usually stronger than their annual counterparts, but in this case the leaves have quite a mild taste, and it's a super useful vegetable. You can harvest it almost year round. Number 6 is a plant that you quite probably know, but maybe do not know it's an edible plant. It's hosta, which is grown as an ornamental, mainly in shady locations, which makes it a great plant for the edible forest garden, for growing under trees. In Japan and maybe other oriental countries, hostas are grown as vegetable, and what is harvested are the rolled up young shoots. Stephen Barstow again calls them hostons. You can steam them lightly. We eat them in the same way as asparagus, and later you can also eat the flower buds or the flowers, which are also edible. We have several hosta plants over there, but they're quite young. I can show you. They're from plants that I divided last year, and I want to give them a chance to get bigger before we start harvesting from them. And also they had some frost damage this year, so I'm leaving those, but I can harvest some shoots from the other plants. And again, you could force the plants in spring, either by covering them with a bucket or by earthing them up. Another great plant for shady spots is ostrich fern. What you harvest in this case are the young shoots, which are still rolled up, and in North America they're very popular as a wild edible, and they are called fiddleheads. My plants are quite young, so I'm waiting for them to get more established before we start harvesting them. But this is a great spot for them under the hazelnut, and I want to add more plants here so that we can have a more bountiful harvest of fiddleheads in the future, because it's one of the maybe most popular wild edibles in the world. Number 8, Good King Henry, a sort of ancestor of spinach, but in this case the leaves are much coarser and slightly bitter if you eat them raw, so I prefer to cook them, but you can also blanch them if you want a milder taste. We have the plants here in full sun, but it's a quite shade tolerant plant that will succeed in at least partial shade, so also a good one for the edible forest garden. Number 9 is a plant that I consider one of the tastiest perennial vegetables and one of the most ornamental ones, but unfortunately I do not have a lot of luck growing it in my gardens. I have here one which is not in a great spot, so I'm going to dig it up and move it to hopefully a better spot. I have grown these from seed. The thing to know about that is that the seed needs to be fresh, otherwise it will not germinate. But I have also planted some plants in my parents' garden in heavy clay, which should not be ideal for sea kale, which is a coastal vegetable, but in their garden they thrive, they're beautiful large plants. The thing that you harvest usually are also, in this case, blanched shoots. You can pick the florets, the sort of the flower buds when they're still closed as a sort of mini broccoli. They have beautiful white flowers that are popular with bees. So really a great plant. And I hope that if I move this one and to a better, a sunnier spot, it will do better for us. I have another small plant in a pot. Another way to propagate it is by taking root cuttings. For the final 10th vegetable, we had to come to our backyard. And number 10 is this plant, sea beet, which is an ancestor of both red beet and chard. And the leaves are a little similar to chard, and you can use them in the same way. Otherwise, it's a really easy plant. It self-sows. I have several here. But I tried also growing it on our bigger plot, and it does not seem to grow there well, possibly because it needs a bit sheltered microclimate, which it does get in this warm part of our backyard. I hoped you enjoyed this video and that it inspired you to grow some perennial vegetables for the leaner times of the year. If you grow some other vegetables that I have not mentioned, please let me know in the comments, and I will see you again soon. Happy gardening. Good morning from the...
Okay, so stop sharing. There's just a ton of perennials out there that you can grow. But I don't know if anybody had anything that you've done that wasn't on this list. The things that one thing that she didn't show, and there's several videos out there that have up to 30 or 35 perennials that you can grow in your garden. But arugula, which is something that I always thought was an annual, but apparently Diplotaxis tenuiflora folia is wild arugula, which grows around here, and I've eaten it for years, and it comes up with like a daisy flower when it bolts and goes to seed. And that one is anything in that family is a perennial. I didn't know that, but just regular garden arugula is pretty good about reseeding itself if you let it go to seed, and so it kind of works like a perennial also, and that's one of those superfoods. But of course, asparagus, everybody knows about that one. Globe artichokes, I'm not sure they will grow in 6B here, but they definitely will grow in 7. So they might grow here at least sometimes, or survive. And if you go into the fruits, I mean that adds another 20 or 30 options, you know, blueberries being a common one, strawberries, your brambles, raspberries, blackberries, all of those. Quite a list of those. Chives and garlic chives is one I want to. That'd be something that would cut and come again. You could, you know, have by your back or front door. Something handy to go in a lot of things you cook. Egyptian walking onions. Most people recommend those. My experience with them is they're extremely pungent, to the point that I'm not too keen on them. But I guess if you always cooked them, they would be okay. But anyway, something to be aware of. And she mentioned the Welsh onion, and there's lots of other different onions, green onion types that divide and you know, pretty much grow forever. Anybody had any experience with Good King Henry?
I'd never even heard of it.
I bought seeds for it. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. It's from the UK, mostly British, and it's something that I guess pretty much grows wild out over there, and but peasants in hard times survived on it, I guess. So apparently it's not that tasty, but it will survive through the winter and produce when nothing else is producing. So it might be a good thing to scatter around. Horseradish is another one that I didn't realize, but that's in the broccoli family. Another one that's pretty strong, but a good healthy thing to have. Rhubarb. We've been growing rhubarb for quite a while and don't get much use out of it. Probably takes up more space than's worthwhile for us anyway. Ramps, which a lot of people are mentioning now, which grow wild, at least in West Virginia. And I transplanted some a few years ago from there to a northern slope in the woods on my place, and they have survived. I wouldn't say they've thrived, but they have survived. I've yet to go look at them this spring, but at least for the last 2 years they've been there. I think you'd ever get a lot of food out of that, but something to have around that most people would never know was there. Lovage, never grown that, but seems like an interesting substitute for celery. And celery's kind of finicky to grow here, but certainly in hot weather. Watercress, I've been trying to get watercress established in my creek, but I think I actually had one that survived last year. Uh, anything else you can think to add to the list? I said there's probably hundreds of them. The big advantage I see of perennials is you don't have to plant them every year, but you still got to weed them. They come back generally, and you know, better than having to plant seeds every year for things that that do have a perennial variety. And apparently in Europe, there's a lot more perennials grown that we don't even know about. One that's been recommended is and the kale is the Portuguese walking kale or Portuguese kale, but it's not hardy here. But you know, apparently there are other varieties that are hardy here. So anyway. Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we close? I'm here tonight before the computer blow up,
Sorry, what was that? The night before the what?
but before your computer blows up.
Oh yeah, my patching. Yeah. It still says it's got an hour.
Wow, it lied to you up front, huh?
Yeah, it's a big package. So
Windows or
Mac.
Mac?
Yeah.
I didn't think they were so bad, but
Well, I skipped the last point release, so
Hmm.
I think that's why. And I'm not on the fastest connection, so
well, let's call it a night then.
okay.
Do it again next week.
Okay.
Good night, Stephen.
Thank you, Winston.
You're welcome.